That badge means something. Don't any of you disgrace it.
I won't, sir.
Did you have permission to talk?
No, sir.
What's your badge number?
3.
All right, 3. Watch it.
Remember when a trip to Mayberry felt like TV comfort food at its finest? Just Sheriff Andy Taylor solving problems with folksy wisdom and a patient smile, Deputy Barney Fife nervously fumbling through deputy duties, Aunt B keeping the Taylor household running with warmth and home cooking, and little Opie learning life lessons one fishing trip at a time. The Andy Griffith Show showed up on CBS back in 1960, ran for 8 seasons and 249 episodes, and somehow made a tiny North Carolina town feel like the center of the universe. This was the rare sitcom that could go from pure silliness to genuine heart in the space of a porch swing conversation. Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, Ron Howard, Francis Bavier built a world a lot of us wished we could move to. And today, we're heading back to Mayberry for 15 weird facts you probably didn't know. From the backdoor pilot that started it all to the reunion that proved America wasn't ready to say goodbye. Now, before we dive in, hit like and subscribe to Remember When for more deep dives into the shows you grew up on, and share this video with someone who can still whistle that theme song without even thinking about it. Now, let's get into the countdown with number 15. Don Knotts left after season 5 because the show wasn't supposed to last that long.
I gotta get back on the job. It's a jungle out there. I gotta hunt them down.
Barney Fife didn't leave Mayberry because of drama, contract feuds, or backstage chaos. No, he left because the Andy Griffith Show was originally supposed to end after 5 seasons. Don Knotts and Andy Griffith had both planned their careers around that timeline. Andy had said publicly he only wanted to do 5 seasons to avoid the show getting stale, and Don believed him. So when season 5 wrapped, Don did the practical thing every working actor does. He lined up his next gig. Universal offered him a multi-picture film deal and he said yes. Then Andy changed his mind. Griffith decided to keep the show going, but the problem was Don had already signed with Universal, and a movie contract is basically Hollywood's version of a pinky promise. You don't break it. So when season 6 started, Barney simply wasn't there. No big farewell episode, no emotional goodbye scene. The characters just mentioned that he'd moved to Raleigh to join the police force as a detective. But here's the part that cements Don Knotts as sitcom royalty. He'd already won 3 Emmy Awards playing Barney as a series regular, then he came back for guest appearances and won 2 more Emmys in 1966 and 1967.
How about Barney Fife being back in town? Call it the Living Legend Returns. And you can have pictures and everything.
That made Don Knotts the first actor in television history to win Emmy Awards for the same role, both as a series regular and as a guest star. 5 Emmys total for playing Barney Fife. Barney Fife may have traded Mayberry for the big city, but every time he came home, he reminded everyone exactly why he was irreplaceable. Number 14, only 3 shows ever ended at number 1, and The Andy Griffith Show was one of them. Ending a TV show while it's still the most watched program in America is basically the entertainment industry's version of dropping the mic. Almost nobody pulls it off, but The Andy Griffith Show did. When the series wrapped in 1968 after 8 seasons, it was sitting proudly at number 1 in the Nielsen ratings. And here's the wild part, only 2 other shows in TV history have ever managed that same feat. I Love Lucy in 1957 and Seinfeld in 1998. That's it. That's the whole elite club. The Andy Griffith Show never fell below 7th place its entire run, but Griffith felt himself burning out and famously said he wasn't doing the show justice anymore. So he chose to leave while it was still a monster hit to try new things, including movies. His jump into feature films didn't quite work out the way he'd hoped. His first movie after the show, Angel in My Pocket, was such a box office disappointment that Universal canceled his 3-picture deal. The Andy Griffith Show, however, remains part of an ultra-exclusive club, a series that ended at the very peak of their popularity. Not canceled, not struggling. That's not just a finale, that's kind of a flex. Number 13, the show spawned 2 hit spin-offs. One left town and one stayed home. For a sleepy little town where the biggest emergency was usually a cow wandering onto Main Street, Mayberry sure produced some serious TV franchises. Not 1, but 2 spin-offs came directly from The Andy Griffith Show, and both were successful in their own right. Let's start with the one everybody remembers, Gomer Pyle USMC. Gomer went from pumping gas at Wally's filling station to shouting favorite catchphrases at Camp Henderson in California.
Gosh, golly, Shazam!
The show launched in 1964 after test driving its pilot as the 4th season finale of The Andy Griffith Show, and it was a smash hit from day one. Jim Nabors' sweet, wide-eyed charm collided hilariously with Frank Sutton's Sergeant Vince Carter, giving CBS 5 seasons and 150 episodes of military mayhem.
What's your name?
Gomer, Pyle?
Pyle, you were supposed to come in on the bus with the rest of the men from your area. What happened?
Oh, about that. You see my buddy Andy Taylor offered to drive me down here? That's him over yonder.
Gomer Pyle was a juggernaut. It landed in the top 3 for 4 of its 5 seasons and finished its final year as the second highest rated show in America. The only reason it ended in 1969 was because Jim Nabors wanted to try something new and left to do a variety show. The second spin-off was the Andy Griffith Show's more literal successor, Mayberry RFD. When Andy Griffith decided to hang up his sheriff's badge in 1968, the show didn't end. Andy just handed the keys to someone else. Mayberry RFD picked up right where the original left off, shifting focus to widower farmer Sam Jones, played by Ken Berry, as he raises his young son Mike and serves as town council president. Aunt Bee, Goober, and Howard Sprigg. The gang was all still there, keeping Mayberry's signature warmth alive.
How soon they forget.
I ain't saying Sam ain't a good man, it's just that we're a lot closer to Andy than him.
It wasn't a wild reinvention, it was comfort food television, and audiences loved it. The series stayed in the top 10 for its first 2 seasons and finished in the top 15 in its third. So why did it disappear? Simple. The CBS Rural Purge. In 1971, the network decided it no longer wanted shows about small towns, farms, or anyone who had ever churned butter. Mayberry RFD was canceled alongside Green Acres, the Beverly Hillbillies, and Petticoat Junction. But the numbers don't lie. Both spin-offs were hits. Gomer marched off to the Marines, and Mayberry stayed right where it was with a new main character, and both proved that Andy Griffith had built a world that could outlive Sheriff Taylor. Number 12, Andy Griffith became a TV icon after Hollywood didn't work out. It's hard to imagine a world where Andy Griffith wasn't already Andy Griffith, but before Mayberry came calling, his path to stardom hit some serious speed bumps. Andy started out strong, really strong. In the mid-1950s, he became famous for his comedy monologue, What It Was Football.
After a while, I seen what it was that there's odd man in folk. It was that both bunches full of them men wanted this funny-looking little pumpkin to play with.
A hilarious breakdown of a football game from the perspective of a country bumpkin who'd never seen the sport before. It was a hit, and it put him on the map. Then he hit Broadway in no time for Sergeants and crushed it.
How do you like girls? I don't like just any girls.
Hollywood noticed, and soon he was starring in the 1957 Elia Kazan drama A Face in the Crowd, giving a powerhouse performance as Lonesome Rhodes, a charming drifter who becomes a dangerously influential media personality. If you've never seen it, Andy Griffith as a villain will absolutely melt your brain. He'd proven that he could do comedy, he'd proven he could do drama, and it all looked like Andy Griffith was on a rocket ship to movie stardom. And then, things stalled. His next film, the 1958 military comedy Onion Head, was a commercial and critical disaster.
I've known all along you date me just to shock your snob friends.
You slay me.
Well, sure I do.
The kind of flop that makes studios nervous and agents start avoiding eye contact. Andy stepped away from film after that. He went back to Broadway for the 1959 musical Destry Rides Again, which had a respectable run. Griffith was nominated for a Tony but lost the award to Jackie Gleason. Solid work, sure, but not the breakthrough that would launch him into A-list movie stardom. By the late 50s, the film career Andy had hoped for just wasn't materializing. He was still a known name, still working, but the path forward in Hollywood wasn't clear, so he made a strategic move: television. And that decision eventually led him to Mayberry, where a small-town sheriff with a fishing pole became one of the most beloved characters in TV history.
Got a nice.
You were right, Claw. He sure went for the ham.
He sure did. Look at there. He's still smacking his lips.
Sorry, Claw.
What started as a pivot away from a stalled movie career turned into a legacy that defined an entire generation. Mayberry didn't just give Andy Griffith a second act, it made him a legend. Number 11, Andy Griffith's post-Mayberry identity crisis. Now, after the Andy Griffith Show wrapped, Andy Griffith made a bold move. He wanted to get as far from Sheriff Taylor as possible. No mayors, no sheriffs, no porch-sitting philosophers, so when he returned to TV in 1970, it wasn't in a southern town, it was in California, at a fancy prep school, as the star of a show called Headmaster. This was Andy in full serious actor mode. He played the headmaster of a prestigious private school.
This is our school. It's a co-educational prep school, and I'm the headmaster. That's like a principal. Since all of our students are teenagers, we're going to try and deal with many of the situations that young people come up against these days.
No jokes, no fishing poles, and definitely no deputy knocking holes in the courthouse ceiling. It was a major image change. Maybe too major. Audiences took one look and said, wait, where's Mayberry? Headmaster fizzled so fast that Griffith himself later admitted it was a very bad show. CBS aired the 14 episodes they had and then hurriedly replaced it with something much more familiar. The new Andy Griffith Show. Yes, that was the actual title. This time, Andy played Andy Sawyer, a guy who returns to his North Carolina hometown of Greenwood and becomes the temporary mayor.
Well, as a senior member of the town council, may I bid y'all a warm welcome to our little town, and a special welcome to you, Miss Sawyer, as being the first lady of our fair city.
Well, thank you.
And in case viewers still weren't getting the deja vu, George Lindsay showed up playing Gomer again, and yes, the same character from Mayberry. Paul Hartman returned as Emmett, also the same character. Don Knotts dropped by as an unnamed character who was identical in mannerisms to Barney Fife, right down to calling Andy Ange. The premiere pulled big numbers, but viewership quickly declined.
Anyway, I come here to talk to you about some business.
Business?
Yeah. Now, Ange, in your official capacity as mayor, you're in a position to help me.
I am?
Yeah.
Between falling ratings and CBS's rural purge, the show was canceled after just 10 episodes, the shortest-lived Andy Griffith Show of them all. Andy spent the next few years doing guest spots in TV movies before reinventing himself again and landing a second iconic role in 1986 as attorney Ben Matlock. Not many actors get two beloved characters in one lifetime. Andy Griffith got Sheriff Taylor and Ben Matlock. Number 10, Aunt Bee and Andy Griffith didn't exactly share Mayberry's warm fuzzies. On screen, Aunt Bee was the heart of Mayberry. She was all kindness, casseroles, and motherly wisdom. Off screen, things were, let's call it, not quite so cozy. Frances Bavier and Andy Griffith had one of the most famous personality mismatches in classic TV.
Easy, easy, Aunt Bee. He's so big you nearly lost your pole.
Andy loved to joke around, pull pranks, and keep the set lively. Frances Bavier, meanwhile, was a classically trained actress who approached every scene with the seriousness of a Broadway rehearsal. Picture a Shakespearean performer suddenly dropped into a room full of Southern comedians who never stopped goofing off. That was the vibe. George Lindsay, Goober Pyle himself, once described Bavier as a very proper lady who didn't want playful banter, didn't want casual rehearsal, and definitely didn't want people wandering around using coarse language. Lindsay admitted he slipped now and then, and Bavier once reportedly whacked him with her umbrella. The production staff learned pretty quickly to take a cautious approach when communicating with her. For Bavier, Mayberry's relaxed behind-the-scenes atmosphere felt unprofessional.
To talk to her uncle, you said?
No, 'cause she heard my voice. And how come she let me know, all smiling and friendly like, that she wasn't going to be at the dance?
Well, you asked her and she told you.
No!
For Griffith, her reserved, distant style felt cold. But here's what made it even harder for Bavier. She felt like she was disappearing. She once explained that it is very difficult for an actress to create a role and to be so identified that you as a person no longer exist, and all the recognition you get is for a part that is created on the screen. She won an Emmy in 1967 for playing Aunt Bee, but the award didn't ease the sting of feeling erased by the character. The strain didn't end when the show did either. In 1986, Andy Griffith and Ron Howard traveled to Siler City, North Carolina, hoping to reconnect with Frances. They showed up at her door, but she wouldn't let them in. She spoke to them briefly through a closed door and sent them away. But 3 years later, 4 months before her death in 1989, Frances Bavier reached out. Living a quiet, reclusive life and dealing with terminal illness, she called Andy Griffith to apologize for being difficult on set. Andy reassured her, told her he loved her, and made it clear that whatever tension existed back then was long gone.
All in all, I'd say it's one of the most active nights I ever spent.
Sorry, I guess we're all a little keyed up, but it'll all work out. They're just here for a weekend.
Yeah, I guess we can stand our loved ones that long.
Two very different people, two very different working styles, one closed door that stayed shut for years, and one final phone call that gave them the closure Mayberry always promised on screen. Number 9. Little Ron Howard couldn't read yet, so his dad helped create Opie. Ron Howard started playing Opie Taylor when he was just 6 years old, and here's the part that still surprises people: he couldn't even read yet. All those sweet, thoughtful scenes were memorized by ear.
Will not. It won't be anything like it. Nobody's like Rose.
Ron's dad, actor Rance Howard, treated the job like homework. He'd read Ron every line, explaining the meaning and having him repeat them until they stuck. Ron would memorize the lines by visualizing the scenes and understanding what they were about. No shortcuts, no isn't he cute because he's tiny. It was real professionalism in a pint-sized package.
Yeah, I understand, even if it don't seem right.
Why doesn't it seem right?
Well, if you get full before you finish, I'd sure rather leave over the sandwich than the pie.
But Rance didn't just help Ron learn the words, he helped shape Opie. Before the show even fully launched, he quietly pulled Andy Griffith aside. The way Opie was written, a wisecracking, overly precocious TV kid in the mold of Dennis the Menace, didn't feel real. Rance suggested Opie should be more like an actual child, with respectful, earnest, and observant personalities.
I laughed.
Did you?
Yeah, just like you, Paul. I laughed and sailed into him like a windmill in a tornado.
Sounded like you ain't stopped blowing either.
Yeah.
Andy agreed instantly. The writers adjusted, the tone shifted, and suddenly that father-son relationship became the beating heart of the show. That one tweak turned Andy and Opie from sitcom pairing into one of TV's most authentic parent-child duos. All because a father knew his son and knew what would make better television. Number 8. A young fan sent Barney Fife a bullet, and Don Knotts' response was perfect. Alright, let's continue this countdown with a detail that sharp-eyed viewers, especially every gun enthusiast in America, caught years ago, and it makes Barney Fife's character even more perfect than you realized. Deputy Barney Fife was famous for that single bullet Andy only allowed him to carry in his shirt pocket.
On your mark, get set!
The whole point was that Barney was such a walking disaster with a firearm that letting him actually load his gun was about as safe as giving a toddler a chainsaw.
I said, all right, you guys, I'm giving you the count of 3. If you ain't out of here on 3, I'm drawing on you. 1, 2, 3.
But here's the thing. Even when Barney did load his precious bullet, he always put it in the wrong chamber of his 6-shooter. In a real revolver, the cylinder rotates before the hammer falls, so Barney's bullet would rotate out of alignment the second he pulled the trigger. Now here's a translation for all the non-gun owners. The first 5 trigger pulls would have gone click, 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 like a cheap wind-up toy before that 6th pull finally fired. Whether the writers knew this little mechanical detail or just stumbled into comedy gold, it became the cherry on top of the Barney Fife persona. But here's where this story gets genuinely sweet. A young boy named Ferris Rookstool felt so bad for Barney that he mailed Don Knotts a toy plastic bullet. Just a kid wanting to help out his favorite deputy.
This is all the mail that come in this morning.
Why, you expecting something?
Yes, I'm expecting something.
Don Knotts didn't just send a thank you note, he went into a studio, put on his full Barney Fife outfit, and had a professional photograph taken of himself loading that toy bullet into his gun. He signed it and mailed it to Ferris, who had been checking the mailbox every single day. But the story doesn't end there. When Don's team learned how much the photo meant to Ferris, they arranged for the 7-year-old to meet Don at the Dallas airport between flights. Don told the boy that receiving the bullet was the nicest thing anyone had done for him and that he'd treasure it forever, and reportedly, he did. Mayberry may have been fictional, but that kind of decency was the real deal.
On your mark, get set.
We're going to take a quick pause because I need to know, if you could spend one day in Mayberry, who are you hanging out with? Is it Andy, Barney, Opie, Aunt B, or someone else entirely? Tell us in the comments, and while you're down there, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss our next trip down Retro TV Lane. Alright, let's get back into the episode with number 7. Finding Andy Taylor a girlfriend took 4 tries. For a show built on small-town charm and front porch wisdom, the Andy Griffith Show sure had a hard time figuring out who Andy Taylor was supposed to date. The first big attempt was Ellie Walker, the town pharmacist, played by Eleanor Donahue, best known for Father Knows Best. Unfortunately, the chemistry just never landed.
Eleanor Walker, PhD. Pharmacy gal? You must be proud of the prize heifer.
Sheriff Taylor, I don't want to be rude, but You do understand, if I'm going to help run this store, I've got to establish some sort of system.
Donahue herself felt uncomfortable in the role, and she asked to be released from her 3-year contract after just 1 season. Her character simply disappeared without explanation. There was an underlying issue though. Griffith himself wasn't comfortable filming romantic scenes. His manager, Richard Linke, once said, "Andy, you have to realize, is not really a ladies' man." If you'll notice, he rarely kissed anybody in the series, and only rarely did he hold Helen Crump. He never did a real kiss. Regardless, after Ellie, the show kept trying. Season 2 brought Mary Simpson, a county nurse played by not 1 but 2 actresses, Julie Adams and Sue Ann Langdon.
Well, howdy, Mary. How's every little thing the county nursing game?
Not bad. How's it with the Law and Order boys?
Mary was a stopgap character who was gone after 1 season, and then came Season 3 and Peggy McMillan, another county nurse played by Joanna Moore. She appeared in 4 episodes, and while the relationship seemed more serious, Peggy didn't last either.
Down in the valley, valley so low.
And then finally, Helen Crump arrived. Helen, played by Anita Corsaut, was Opie's elementary school teacher. She was smart, grounded, and capable of holding her own in a conversation or an argument with Andy. Unlike the previous love interest, Helen wasn't just Andy's girlfriend, she was a working professional already woven into the fabric of Mayberry life. She could challenge Andy, she could scold Barney, and she was a real person instead of a placeholder. The chemistry worked.
Thank you for walking me home, Sheriff. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed our little talk.
Well, I'm kind of glad I got a chance to explain things.
Some say it helped that Griffith and Corsaut reportedly had a long-term off-screen relationship, which brought a natural ease to their scenes together. But even with Helen, the romance stayed true to Andy's character, understated and genuine. Helen and Andy eventually married in the first episode of the spin-off Mayberry RFD, proving that sometimes it takes a few tries and the right person to get it right. Number 6, Opie Taylor was named after a real musician. Opie might sound like the kind of name a writer cooked up after too much sweet tea, but the inspiration actually came straight out of the big band era. Ron Howard's character was named after a real person, Opal Opie Taft Cates, a popular clarinetist, big band leader, and radio personality from the 1930s and 40s. Yes, Opie Taylor was literally named after a jazz musician. The connection goes back to producer-director Sheldon Leonard, one of the driving creative forces behind the Andy Griffith Show. Before Mayberry, Leonard had worked alongside Opie Cates on the 1940s radio comedy Meet Me at Parky's. Cates was the musical director and Leonard was part of the cast. They became friends, and years later when Leonard was creating the show, he thought Opie would be the perfect name for Andy Taylor's son. Andy Griffith agreed, and together they settled on Opie. But here's the classy part. Sheldon Leonard actually called the real Opie Cates to ask permission to use the name. Cates said yes, and a little piece of big band history quietly found its way into TV history. There's a competing theory floating around that Opie was named after one of Andy Griffith's childhood friends, Opie Shelton, but Ron Howard himself put that rumor to bed on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He confirmed the character was named after band leader Opie Cates. And if you want a final heartwarming note, in Cates' later years as his health declined, Ron Howard, the kid who made the name famous to a whole new generation, would reportedly call to check on him. A small gesture that shows the respect behind that choice. Mayberry may have been fictional, but the name Opie, that came straight out of American musical history. Number 5, the show started because Danny Thomas ran a stop sign. Now, before Mayberry became America's favorite small town, it had to audition for the job, and it did so on someone else's TV show. The Andy Griffith Show didn't just premiere out of nowhere in 1960. It was quietly test-driven on the Danny Thomas Show in an episode called Danny Meets Andy Griffith, which aired on February 15, 1960.
Well, I reckon you can tell the justice of the peace if you want to.
Well, I reckon I won't do.
This was a classic backdoor pilot, a sneaky way to introduce new characters and gauge audience interest without committing to a full series. And the setup is pure TV gold. Danny Williams, the fast-talking New York comedian played by Danny Thomas, is driving through the sleepy fictional town of Mayberry, North Carolina, on his way back to the city. He blows through a stop sign because, of course he does, and gets promptly pulled over by the local sheriff, Andy Taylor. Cue the culture clash. Danny is impatient, high-strung, and annoyed that some small-town cop is wasting his time. However, Andy is calm, polite, and completely unbothered by Danny's big city attitude.
I demand to make a phone call. I have a right to make a phone call. Even a murderer has a right to one phone call.
Well, help yourself.
I do, thank you.
Yes, sir. Want to sit down?
Thanks a lot. I don't want to sit.
When Danny refuses to pay the fine, Andy offers him a choice: pay $100 or spend 10 days in jail.
So that'll just be $100 or 10 days in jail.
Danny picks jail, partly out of stubbornness and partly because he figures he'll make a point. What he doesn't expect is that his night behind bars will turn into a front row seat to Andy Taylor's entire approach to life. While locked up, Danny watches Andy interact with the townspeople, including his young son Opie, played by Ron Howard, and a local widow named Henrietta Perkins, played by Frances Bavier, the future Aunt Bee. By the end of the episode, Danny's sarcasm melts away. He sees the sincerity, warmth, and quiet wisdom that Andy brings to Mayberry, apologizes for being a jerk, and the two part as friends.
I'd like to apologize to Andy for being a billerin' city slicker. I'm sorry, Andy. I had you all wrong.
Oh, thank you a lot, Danny.
The audience loved it. CBS loved it. General Foods, the sponsor, they loved it too. And just 7.5 months later, on October 3rd of 1960, The Andy Griffith Show premiered as its own series. One episode, one stop sign, one night in a Mayberry jail cell. That's all it took to convince America that Andy Taylor deserved his own show. Number 4, the Andy Griffith theme song actually does have lyrics. That whistle from the Andy Griffith Show, the one that instantly makes you feel like you should grab a fishing pole and slow walk your problems away, well, plot twist, that famous whistling theme actually started out as a real song with real lyrics, and Andy Griffith sang them. Yep, the fishing hole wasn't originally meant to be whistled at all. The tune was whipped up by composer Earl Hagen and Herbert Spencer. Hagen being the guy who not only wrote it but also did the actual whistling, and he reportedly knocked out the whole melody in about 10 to 15 minutes. That's right, one of the most iconic TV themes of all time was basically a musical napkin doodle. Enter actor Everett Sloane, who fans might remember as Jubal Foster from the episode The Keeper of the Flame, and someone who must have heard the theme and thought, cute tune, but where are the words? So, he wrote them. Full lyrics, actual verses, with real rhymes about heading down to the fishing hole. And Andy Griffith, he recorded the vocal version for his 1961 album, Songs, Themes, and Laughs from The Andy Griffith Show, and honestly, it's delightful. It's folksy, warm, and peak early 60s charm.
Well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole. We may not.
So why don't we hear Andy singing over the opening credits then? Well, because the producers took one listen and said, you know what's even better than lyrics? No lyrics. They wanted that pure, simple, small-town feeling. No exposition, no plot summary, no theme song explaining the premise, just a father, a son, a fishing pole, and the world's most relaxing whistle. And let's be real, they were right. Nothing says welcome to Mayberry better than that breezy, wordless stroll to the lake. Number 3, Mayberry's famous fishing hole was actually in the middle of Los Angeles. That peaceful little fishing hole in the Andy Griffith Show opening credits, you know, the quiet small town escape where Andy and Opie stroll down a dirt path like they're heading into a simpler world. Yeah, that wasn't North Carolina, that was Los Angeles. Beverly Hills, to be exact. The take is actually part of Franklin Canyon Park, a 605-acre nature preserve tucked right between Beverly Hills and Studio City. While Mayberry looked like a place where the biggest crisis was running out of fishing bait, in reality, you were about 10 minutes away from some of the most expensive zip codes in America. Hollywood used Franklin Canyon constantly, and the location appeared in everything from classic sitcoms to supernatural thrillers. Just a few productions that filmed at the exact same lake are The Brady Bunch, that filmed camping scenes there in the 1969 episode A Camping We Will Go. Twin Peaks used the peak for exterior shots in Season 2, and again in the 2017 revival, turning those California woods into the eerie forest of the Pacific Northwest. NCIS has filmed outdoor scenes here too, so yeah, Gibbs has absolutely stood within arm's reach of where Andy fished, and here's the kicker, Purple Rain filmed scenes there. Andy Taylor and Prince? That park? Let that sink in. Franklin Canyon is one of Hollywood's ultimate shapeshifters, a public park that's played everything from rural America to supernatural forests to 1970s suburbia. So the next time you watch Andy and Opie head down that dirt path, just remember, Behind those trees was probably a crew truck, a catering table, and someone desperately trying to find street parking. Hollywood Magic, Mayberry edition. Number 2, Opie didn't make that famous splash. You know that opening of the Andy Griffith Show? Andy and little Opie strolling down to the lake, fishing poles in hand, and Opie casually tossing a rock that makes the perfect cinematic splash? Yeah, about that splash. 6-year-old Ron Howard was adorable, talented, and already smarter than half the adults on set, but one thing he absolutely couldn't do? Throw a rock far enough to hit the water from where the cameras were set up.
And Andy Griffith, there he was, walking down this road with a little red-headed kid, and the kid comes to the lake and he throws a rock, and it doesn't go in the lake.
The poor kid would launch it and it would land nowhere near the lake. Enter assistant director Bruce Bilson, who came up with the kind of behind-the-scenes hack that would make MacGyver proud. The solution was to hide a grown man in the bushes.
I said to the prop guy, listen, go behind that bush, and when I say throw it, you throw it into the lake.
A prop guy crouched just out of frame near the waterline, rock in hand, waiting for Ron Howard to pretend to throw his. The moment Opie made the motion, the crewman hurled his rock into the lake, and boom! Perfect picturesque splash. TV magic achieved. The best part is it worked so flawlessly that for decades, everyone just assumed little Opie was out there showing off his Olympic-grade stone-tossing abilities. Ron Howard has since laughed about his childhood throwing problem and even posted an Instagram video in 2019 of himself finally skipping a stone, proudly captioning it, "Still got it." It only took him 50 years to make good on that opening shot. Number 1, Return to Mayberry dominated 1986, but it wasn't the last goodbye. Now, if you want proof that Mayberry wasn't just a sitcom, but a cultural heartbeat, look no further than Return to Mayberry, the 1986 reunion movie that brought the gang back together and absolutely dominated television. It aired on NBC on April 13th of 1986 and became the highest-rated TV movie of the entire 85 to 86 season. Not bad for a town where the biggest crime was usually jaywalking with a fishing pole. 16 original cast members returned. 16! Turning the movie into a full-on time capsule for fans.
Yeah, tell him who's calling, please.
Mr. Taylor.
Paul!
Hey, oh! It's good to see you.
Good to see
you. Well, you never gain a pound, do you?
Well, I have to watch it.
What about this visit?
Oh, well, you know, Aunt Bee always said I had a short lip.
The story picks up with Andy Taylor, now retired from life as a postal inspector in Cleveland, heading home with Helen because Opie and his wife are about to have their first child. Yeah, Andy Taylor is about to become Grandpa Andy. But Mayberry hasn't gotten any less dramatic. Barney Fife is serving as acting sheriff and campaigning to win the job permanently. Andy initially considers running for his old position, but when he learns Barney wants it, he quietly backs down. Because the only thing more sacred than the Mayberry Town Charter is Andy not hurting Barney's feelings. Meanwhile, the town is buzzing over sightings of a mysterious lake monster, which turns out to be a publicity stunt cooked up by a local restaurateur and Ernest T. Bass to drum up tourist business at Myers Lake. Naturally, Barney falls for it so hard you'd swear he'd never left the 1960s. Andy works behind the scenes to help Barney crack the case and avoid public embarrassment because that's what best friends do. At a campaign rally, Barney realizes Andy stepped aside out of friendship. In an emotional speech, Barney withdraws from the race and asks the crowd to vote for Andy as a write-in candidate. Andy wins and promptly reappoints Barney as his deputy. Some partnerships are just meant to be. And speaking of long-awaited developments, Barney finally marries Thelma Lou after 20 plus years of emotional whiplash.
There's a feeling around here that these two were always meant to be married.
Otis Campbell is sober and driving an ice cream truck. That's a glow-up Hollywood should study. Gomer and Goober Pyle run the gas station together, now called G&G Garage, like it's a buddy comedy waiting to happen. Oh, and Howard Sprague, Ernest T. Bass, and the Darling family all show up for the ultimate Mayberry reunion. The only major absence was Frances Bavier, who had retired from acting and was too ill to participate. Aunt Bee is written as having passed away and Andy visiting her grave, accompanied by a voiceover from Janet Waldo in one of the movie's most touching moments.
You know, Andy, all I ever wanted was for you and Opie to be good citizens and to treat people right. I know you will.
The response was overwhelming. Fans and critics both embraced it, and NBC was so pleased they started wondering whether Mayberry should make a full comeback. But Andy Griffith was already stepping into his next iconic role as Ben Matlock, so a new series never materialized. And honestly, that might have been for the best. Return to Mayberry gave fans the reunion they'd been waiting for. A gentle, funny, heartfelt movie that reminded everyone why Mayberry had been launched in America's memory for over 40 years. But the true final goodbye came 17 years later in 2003 with the 4 surviving principals, Andy Griffith, Ron Howard, Don Knotts, and Jim Nabors. They reunited one last time on CBS to reminisce about their time in Mayberry. No scripts, no storylines, just 4 old friends looking back on what they'd created together. This was the real farewell, proving that some towns and some friendships never really let you go. And there you have it, 15 weird and wonderful facts about the Andy Griffith Show. Which fact surprised you the most, and what's your strongest Mayberry memory? A favorite episode, a character, or is it just that opening walk to the fishing hole? Let us know in the comment section below, and hit like if this stirred up some small town nostalgia. Also, if you wouldn't mind, subscribe for more deep dives into the shows that we grew up on. Until next time, this is Remember When.